迎嚟到24小時網上電台 onairpower.com 嘅呢個節目係叫遊走香港，我係你嘅主持人尤利亞 Gloria。我呢個節目咧不單會講文化，甚至係香港嘅藝術啦、音樂、社會嘅時事，甚至啲小人物，我哋喺街角會見到佢嘅，但係我哋唔知道原來佢嘅故事係非常之有趣，所以喺呢個節目裏面咧，我哋都會探討下呢啲小人物嘅。咁歡迎大家逢星期五夜晚9點鐘遊走香港。
Now he's on airpower.com. Our topic is talking about the human trafficking. I'm a DJ host, Gloria Chan, and the guest is Matthew. We're still going on to talking about your organization. Can you explain the background of your organization to us?
Yes. Okay. So this brings us back around 3 years ago. At that time, I was living and working in Thailand, working for the United Nations. And I was trying to raise some money for the United Nations. And so I heard that in Hong Kong, there were a lot of corporations that had lots of money and resources, and the streets were lined with gold and silver.
Wow.
And we could easily raise a lot of money. So I started to come up here because I had a friend who was able to get me into high-level meetings with corporate people. And so the interesting thing about the meetings was that when I sat down in a lot of these offices and started to talk about the issue, many of them didn't know anything about human trafficking, and I thought that was quite surprising because these are highly educated people. The second thing that I heard was that many of them, after they learned about it, they became very concerned because they thought maybe this was a vulnerability for their business.
Yeah.
But the third thing that happened afterwards is they got very interested in knowing if there was something that they could do to help. Now, a lot of people, when they think about Hong Kong, they think about money and greed and private sector, and they don't care about the world. But I found that many of the business people that I was working with actually really did care about the world and very much cared about this issue. Not all of them, but many of them.
Yep.
So what happened is many of them said, well, we don't want to give money to the United Nations. You're just going to come back and wag your finger and say to us that we have to do certain things.
Yeah.
Why don't we, the private sector, come up with our own organization to see if we can address human trafficking using business to go after bad business? So a number of very prominent business people came together and developed the Mekong Club.
How many people in your club now?
The club basically is made up of 10 board members. We have 3 paid staff, and we have many volunteers. And so very soon the club will have membership, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the funny thing about the name is, why would you call a non-government organization a Mekong Club? And it's because the people who set it up wanted it to be pro-business. They didn't want it to be anti-this or anti-human rights that or amnesty this. They wanted it basically to be neutral so that people would not be afraid of this particular organization. So once it was set up, we have a number of things that we do. Much of what we do is we go and we talk to corporations, we explain to them about the issue, we do presentations to their staff, we do trainings on looking at their supply chains to give them the tools and the means to be able to protect themselves. And so by being able to do that, we allow them to have whatever it takes to go into the factories in various countries to really protect themselves. If they get into trouble, they can sit with us and we can work out some kind of a plan to help them to address it. Now, you ask about the club side of it. We're also in the process of having an association. And what this association will do is allow for private companies together in the same room, sit down, talk about the issue, work with the issue in a very safe environment. So they're not afraid that anyone's going to say anything that will name or shame them. Because the media sometimes does that, and the NGOs sometimes do that, and it hurts the reputation of these companies. Naming and shaming has a place. It's important if somebody's doing something bad. But if you don't have a place to go to fix things, then there's an imbalance between the naming and shaming and something else. We try to fill that balance by
take more action.
Exactly. Exactly. Another thing that we do is we work with organizations in Thailand that go after trafficking of women and girls into very terrible situations. So we work with an organization called Friedman Foundation. And what they do is they work with the local police to go after the worst of the worst cases. So a year ago, we went after a trafficking ring that was bringing Uzbeki girls into Bangkok, and we shut it down. And the last case we dealt with was bringing virgins from Burma into Thailand and then selling their virginity. And they would sell the virginity 300 times because once the girl started to bleed, they said that she was a virgin. Terrible, terrible
my God.
situation. So we were able to identify this and shut it down. And then we worked with National Geographic and did an episode on National Geographic to help people to understand that there is hope. Now, the next thing we do is...
like the use the smartphone.
Google approached us and said, can the private sector use technology to help address human trafficking? So we didn't know, so we went down to Bangkok and we talked to the police and we said, what's your biggest problem? And what they said was that we come in contact with potential victims, but we don't know where they come from. And so we can't communicate with them. So we then developed an app that would allow them to be able to communicate. So the way the app works is you basically have a face of a phone that has maps on it. And what you do is you show that to a potential victim. And then the victim will press the country, that flag that represents them. So by doing that, a video comes on in their language. And what that video is saying is, we're the authorities. We don't know whether there's a problem or not, but we're going to ask you some questions. If the answer to the question is yes, press green. No, press red. And so the questions will be like, are you here against your will? Do you need help? Are you in trouble? So if the victim presses green even once, even if the person doesn't know what's being said, they know there's an issue. So it's a very simple tool, but it's a very effective tool because it's allowed us to be able to increase the number of trafficking victims identified by about 20% for this simple phone app. Another thing we do is, after we worked with Cathay Pacific, they said, what can we do to help? So they decided to put an anti-trafficking film called Not My Life on the airplane so people could watch it.
Yeah, everyone can, when you stay in the flights, they can have a look.
Exactly. And so a lot of people wrote in and they said, thank you very much for putting that film on. They did a magazine article on the in-flight magazine. That's never happened before. And we did a video to train all of their staff. We worked with British Telecommunications, and after we showed them this app, they came and said, we can do a much better job. So we had about 5 engineers say to us, why don't we try to do something? And so British Telecommunications had a contest among all of their staff, the 10,000 of them, to see who could come up with the best solution to addressing human slavery with technology. So it shows that companies are interested in stepping up, coming forward, and helping to address the issue. So the Mekong Club is only about 18 months old. We presented to over 6,000 corporates, over 120 different companies, and we're beginning to feel like there's a tremendous interest and motivation for them to get more and more involved in helping to address the issue.
Yeah, that is quite interesting because normally, because I saw it, normally maybe the Western people or something like that, the educated people understand more. Just like the local Hong Kong people, they don't really understand this issue.
That's right.
Really much, yeah.
So the big challenge for us in the next couple of months, most of the businesses we have been dealing with are English-speaking, but we have some prominent Chinese businessmen who came to us and said, we also want this message to go to the Chinese companies.
I think so.
So we'll be developing a film that will, in Cantonese and Mandarin, have all of the same messages, and then I will go there, and at the end they can ask questions and answers. We'll have an interpreter.
Yeah, I think so. Really important because, you know, normally in Hong Kong, we know some Chinese park is really poor, and something like that will happen like that, the human trafficking or slavery for them.
Exactly.
So you come here, just want to help Chinese people too. Yeah.
We're going to help anyone and everyone. 21 million people in slavery. It's a terrible situation. More slaves in the world than any other time. So it's super important that people, all people, understand this because most people, when they hear about it, they feel like they want to help. And that's really what we want to have happen here.
Yeah. So that, where were you? Yeah, just you and me. Everyone can do it. Something for that.
Yeah. Actually, the where were you story is quite interesting. When I was living and working in Nepal, I desperately wanted to do something to help. And so I decided I was going to write a book. And the book was going to be about the women and the girls that were forced into prostitution. So I would go from one shelter to another to another. At one of the shelters, when I got there, there was a young girl named Gita. And every time I approached her, she would cringe and move back. It was clear that she was very, very upset by something. But she'd said she didn't want me to interview her. So at that shelter, I interviewed a few other girls, but Gita sat and listened to everything that I was saying.
Yeah.
When I was about to leave, Gita came up and said, "Okay, you can have my story." So she sat on one side of the table, and there were a number of us on the other side. And over a 3-hour period, she told the worst story I'd ever heard of rape and torture and slavery and disease and deceit.
Now she get well now?
Well, what happened to her is, well, let me finish this story because it tells a little bit about how she is at the end of that, I didn't know what to say to her. I was really shocked and surprised. And so I finally looked at Gita and I said, "Wow, you must be so angry at the traffickers." And she said, "No, I'm angry at you and you and you." She pointed us. She said, "Where were you?" Every single day I sat there praying that somebody was going to help me, and nobody did. She said she wasn't angry at the traffickers. They are just bad people being bad people. She said, "Where are all the good people? Why didn't society care enough to come and save her?" And I tell that story because it helps us to understand the fact that these people are sitting there wondering why the world isn't helping them. It's very easy to find people in slavery-type circumstances. If you look for them, you can find them everywhere. And why, if we can find them, is nobody doing something about it? And that's a very important question.
Yeah. This is a good question for us to have a reflection and how to do that, and how to make a society in the world a more equal freedom for everyone.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
And then we want to mention about your organization. Just let the people can search your organization. Can
Yes.
you mention again in here?
Yeah, so basically the organization is the Mekong Club. It's the mekongclub.org. It's online. We're also in Facebook and Twitter. And if you're interested, go online. And if you have any questions, there is a email that you can contact us. And we often respond to students and to faith-based groups and to corporations. A lot of people have questions about this issue, and one of the things that we do is to just educate people and help them to understand the importance of this topic. For human trafficking to go away, everybody has to get involved.
Yep.
And if people just even did one small thing, and we're talking about millions and millions of people doing one small thing, some of the suggestions that we made before, we could really begin to tackle this issue and make a difference over time.
Yeah. But you have any recently activities for Hong Kong now?
Well, basically, we have over at the Asia Society, I'll be doing a presentation on the 22nd, which is a big event for us. And we will be launching our association at the end of next month. And we continually do presentations. I probably do 3 or 4 presentations a week. And so those are often listed on our website, where we're going to be and what we're going to do. So
because some people
can go.
maybe want to be a volunteer to join these activities with you.
That's right. And we do accept volunteers. If people want have skills that are related to legal or to communications or social networking, we often find a way of using them. Or if we can't find space because we already have somebody, we often can refer them to somebody else who can help.
So we'll welcome you come to our radio program and share something like that is meaningful things for us to understand more about human trafficking in Hong Kong and also in Asia too.
Well, thank you very much for the
thank you.
opportunity.
Hope to next time you can share more.
Okay, very good. Thank
Okay,
you.
see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.